I just add something on that. There is a deep ambivalence that Egyptians have about the United States. It's not simply go away, leave us alone, stop. There is this sense that the U.S. is coercing, domineering, controlling, and that produces a very strong reaction. But there's also a deeper feeling, which is why I've titled my book "Feeling Betrayed," that America does express certain values that they respond to, that they find attractive, and they feel at times that they kind of soften up in relation to these ideals that America puts forward. And then when America doesn't live up to them, they have this strong reaction of betrayal and how could you do that to us, and there's a sense of humiliation. When in the focus groups, people don't say go away. They sort of beseech America to rediscover these kind of universal ideals that would govern the U.S. I think of it they see U.S. as a kind of lapsed idealist, right? And they're trying to get America back to that. And to the extent that they perceive that the U.S. is coming from those values that imply constraints on the hegemon, that's number one. The principles of international law having those constraints, and they think, and to the extent that they perceive the U.S. as doing that, then they actually want a certain participation on the part of the U.S. On the women's issue, did you want to pick up on that?
Why don't you start?
Okay, it's hard to say how that's going to go. I would say that probably it's not going to be all that different in the end. I mean, there are just so many forces that influence the role of women in Egyptian society, and the kinds of changes that are happening at the top in terms of governmental structure, and even in terms of Islam playing some kind of role in governance. I don't think that's going to kind of sift down to the level of really of producing some fundamental change in the role of women.
Interesting. I mean, I don't ask a lot of questions about women in my poll, but there's one question I've asked for the past decade as kind of an indirect indicator, which is whether people support women working outside the home. And what we see is only very small minorities oppose women working outside the home, below 20%. Generally, the plurality think that women should work outside the home only when economically necessary, and then another large minority say under all circumstances. I happen to think I'm in agreement with some of the research that's been done recently, including a couple of very good articles on women empowerment in the Middle East, that of course, religion matters and culture matters, but the trends overall in global terms of transitions from, women acquiring more rights is far more a function of political economy than anything else. And there's been quite a bit of evidence that particularly the oil economy of the Middle East has actually created far fewer incentives for women, because I think women's rights and empowerment is a function of women's working, first and foremost, not even just the education. I think the education is important, but it's really women working, earning independent wages. And all the trends really, in the places where we know there's been an expansion of women's rights, been a function of women's acquiring independent income. And the independent income is a function more of of opportunity in a political economic structure, rather than a cultural barrier to women working out, as we find in the polls. We find in the polls an openness to women working outside the house, especially if economically needed. So I think the answer to the Egypt question is ultimately that. I mean, obviously you have to worry about it in the Constitution and rights being protected, all of that. But in the end, in society, it's really a function of how you structure the political economy of the state.
Just one more thing to throw in, that there is a broad perception that there has been a major change in Egypt on the role of women. So there is not, as you find in some Muslim country, a kind of pent-up demand for more equalization. you have more of a sense of we've been doing a lot, and less a sense of urgency for greater change.
Well, we have many more questions, but we're running out of time. So we'll be looking forward to your future polls, gentlemen. Thank you both for joining us. Thank you all for coming out.